In conversation today, we have RK alias Radhakrishnan. We are going to talk about cricket, commentary and more. My first question to you is, you had the best seat in cricket evolution. What has changed over the years?
I think it's changed immensely because I remember starting off as a reporter way back in time in the year 2002. So when we used to go for press conferences, honestly, you had one or two microphones. I remember my first assignment was probably covering an India camp way back in time when John Wright was the coach. We were parked at the KCS Stadium in Bengaluru, where we had all the time in the world. We had about 1 week observing every evening. You had one of those cricketers coming over and speaking to the press. So those were the good old quiet times, if I might say so. But things have exploded ever since. You look at the number of channels that are queuing up to talk to cricketers. You talk about the changes in technology. If I go even back in further back in time, I'm looking at a time where you actually had to sit down with a piece of paper and then write down the number of overs and what team A has done as opposed to team B. I mean, you're looking at the graphics that have changed immensely. You're talking about analytics, which is completely revolutionized. You're talking about matchups even before the game starts. I think you and I mean, all of us sit down and understand how the game is going to pan out. So much has changed in the world of broadcasting. The number of cameras, the sheer volume of content has increased, and the number of languages that I use these days to broadcast cricket has increased. There was a time when you only had the Englishmen and the Australians, maybe a handful of Indians talking about cricket in English, but you talk about the number of regional languages, the hours of content that is being produced. There's a sense of belonging to the game that is well and truly belonging to us, and so it's quite literally exploded over the last 20 years or so.
You do commentary across sports and in multiple languages. What do you think about broadcasting in regional languages?
I think it's very important that broadcast is done more and more in regional languages. Let's be very, very honest about it. We all, most of us obviously do understand English. We enjoy English broadcast. But I think if you want to sit down at home and watch a broadcast, let's face it, what's the first language that you speak at home? You might be speaking Hindi, I might be speaking Tamil, there's a friend of mine who would be speaking Telugu. That's the kind of experience that you want to give to people. And that experience is possible only when you take it closer to people. For example, there are a few jokes that, you get it right in your regional language. If you've got an expert panel which all speak the same language, forget about English for just a moment. If you're talking about, Telugu or Tamil or Kannada, effectively you're talking about cricket, you're talking about entertainment, you're talking about movies. There's a sense of belonging there. You're sitting there in your living room enjoying a sport. It's almost as if you're conversing with your set of friends. And I think that's the experiential change that you've seen over the years. And that is possible, or that has been made possible only because of the impetus that has been given to regional languages. So I think regional languages are here to stay. I would even go on to say that regional languages are indeed the future. So obviously you'll have Hindi, which is the dominant language across India, but beyond that, I think you're going to be seeing a lot more broadcasting in regional languages.
Regional broadcasting tends to be biased towards a particular team. How do you overcome that and be neutral?
Look, let's be honest about it. So if you're going to sit and watch a game in Karnataka, right, at the end of the day, the fans are going to root for a Royal Challengers Bangalore. Likewise, if you're going to sit and watch a game in interior parts of Tamil Nadu, say Madurai or Kanyakumari or wherever it is, fans are going to root for Chennai Super Kings. Fans want to know a bit more about Mahendra Singh Dhoni. And therefore, I think I wouldn't justify it, but I can understand why the content, the editorial content, is slightly more tilted towards the local teams, because that's the news that you would want to gather. You get across to social media, you have the set of fans who are supporting. Most of them are from that respective state, want to understand a bit more about their own superstars, their native superstars, their native players. And therefore, there is a bit of a tilt towards that. I think how we manage to kind of strike a balance is, I think, time and again remind people or remind the experts or editorial, bring about a perspective where we say that, look, at the end of the day, it's a game between two teams. As much as you love one team, as much as you love a superstar that belongs to your side, it's important that we appreciate the game of cricket, sport overall, and that's the only way that you can bring about. And therefore, try to bring about a few more points from the opposition's perspective. When I say opposition's perspective, obviously beyond the regional side of things, and try to communicate that a bit more effectively so that people understand that there is a matchup. There are two teams that are out there to play a sport, and one wins and one loses.
Which current cricketer do you think will become a future commentator and why?
I think quite a few qualify because I think the command over the language is immense for a lot of these current cricketers. I think their exposure to media is a lot more than what it was, say, about 20-25 years back. If I were to pick a few cricketers from the Indian team, for example, Virat Kohli will be fabulous. I think because he's got a very clear sense of communication. He's extremely clear about it. He's extremely articulate. He looks really good. He's groomed himself very, very well over the years. He's a brand. He's an icon. I think Virat Kohli will be very, very good. I'm not too sure if MS Dhoni would want to commentate. If he commentates, it'll be brilliant. Ashwin will be fabulous because he's a great storyteller. He's already got a YouTube channel that is doing very, very well. Dinesh Karthik has already started commentating. He's one of the best commentators that are going around. And I'll be really happy if Shikhar Dhawan comes out to commentate because his command over in Hindi is very, very good. And I think he can appeal a bit more to the Hindi audiences. So I think these are the few names, but to be honest, almost everyone is very, very good at communicating. So I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few of them jump onto the commentary box, assuming they all want to commentate about it again.
Okay, right, great. Over the years, which sports person did you really enjoy interviewing?
Growing up, I've always admired Sachin Tendulkar, and my dream was to probably meet him and interview him. I would still rate my interview with Sachin Tendulkar as a bit of a fanboy moment way back in time. I think when he was stuck on 29 test centuries, when he was at par with Bradman, when he was about to go beyond the 29 to score his 30th. I remember interviewing him first on the footsteps at the KCA in Bengaluru. So I think the first time I tried to pick up a microphone, thank God it was a recorded interview because I just couldn't speak because I was just completely awestruck just looking at that superstar in Sachin Tendulkar. That was one. And the other is probably a Mahendra Singh Dhoni because I've had the privilege of spending enough and more time with Mahendra Singh Dhoni, more not as an interviewer, but as somebody who's sat down and spoke about a lot of things. And believe you me, he speaks about a lot of things. He loves his PlayStation. He talks about football. He talks about the warm-ups. He talks about food. Just privileged to have had these conversations with such legends from Indian cricket. And beyond, I think Indian cricketing shows, I think one man who has always been upfront and has been brilliant when it comes to broadcasting is the former Australian great and captain in Ian Chappell. I think he still remains a very good friend of mine. We've been in touch and it's truly a privilege knowing and speaking to these wonderful set of people. And how can I forget Sir Isaac Vivian Alexander Richards? He's still the absolute superstar. God, if he still plays this game of T20 cricket, he'll be dominating it. And wonderful individual. Just enjoyed speaking to all of them, to be honest, and it's very difficult to pick one of those.
You have been in cricket broadcasting or sports broadcasting for over 2 decades now. Definitely you must have had some funny moments. Can you tell us some?
I don't know if I can call it funny, but I can call it embarrassing for sure. Because I remember as this young reporter, I mean, you had to carry everything by yourself, right? When you're starting off with a new job of yours. We had this shoot, I think it was about 2002 or 2003. So you assume that you've got it all. And what happens invariably is when you start off your job, you think that you know it all. And you think you just arrived and you think you're absolutely ready. And so there's the shoot that we went for in Delhi, if I'm not mistaken. Thankfully, it was a recorded one, and I had to pack all the bags. I had to get my tripod in order. Those days you had these beta tapes. I'm not even sure if people are aware of beta tapes. It's probably as old as a floppy disk, I would imagine, in computers. But these beta tapes are something that you carry with yourself for recording purposes. And I thought, and normally you tend to carry about 2 or 3 beta tapes with you. But on that day, I don't know what happened to me. Just completely forgot about it. Went there, the crew was ready, the shoot was about to unfold, and there you go. I checked my bags, and there were no beta tapes as well. It was hugely embarrassing. A few guys had turned up for the shoot, and I had to go all the way back to the office and pick up my beta tapes and get there. So that was a good lesson learned. So I'm not too sure if it was funny. It wasn't funny then. It's funny now. It's embarrassing now. But there you go.
What are your favorite moments to cherish in broadcasting?
Quite a few actually. Sachin Tendulkar scoring his double 100 was huge. I was in the commentary box, so that is something that I would rate as one of the moments that I was a part of. Mahendra Singh Dhoni making sure that he led CSK to a title. But more than just commentary moments, I would probably turn around and say one of my best moments in the field of broadcasting is when the Indian team won the 2007 World Cup, as in the T20 World Cup. And there was this lovely bus ride for the team that was arranged from the airport to the Wankhede. So I was a part of the broadcasting team then. I was a part of the host broadcaster, and therefore I was inside the bus. I was sitting right next to Mahendra Singh Dhoni and travelled all the way from the airport to the Wankhede, and you had plenty of people lined up on the streets giving almost everything that they had. It could be those chocolates, it could be biscuits, it could be fruits, it could be just about anything. And there was this man in Mahendra Singh Dhoni with those long hairs. I mean, remember Mahendra Singh Dhoni with that kind of a hairstyle? Good old years, and he was accepting almost everything. He had a few, he passed it on to us as well. So it was one great ride. It was almost as if I had won the World Cup. I was just sitting right next to a World Cup winning captain. That was probably the most memorable moment in my 20-21 years of broadcasting.
Broadcasting isn't new to you, but what's different with Jio Cinemas?
I think it's cricket first with respect to JioCinema. Obviously, entertainment does form a part of it because at the end of the day, I guess you need the people to be entertained, but I think it's putting cricket first up there. And when I say cricket first up there, it is basically across 360 degrees. For starters, you've got current cricketers who are part of the expert panel, which means that their knowledge, their know-how, and their understanding of Indian domestic cricket is a bit more than what you've seen ever before. We've seen that in the insiders, we've seen that in the regional side of things as well, because when you're talking about cricketers that are known to the world, it's fairly obvious, right? When you talk about the superstars, pretty much you and me, every one of us understands who the superstars are and what they have done in the past and what they can do on the field. But with respect to Indian domestic cricketers, I think the differentiating factor is players who played alongside them know a bit more about who they are even before the first ball is bowled. And I think that knowledge is passed very well to the audiences. I think that's a huge differentiator. And then you're talking about the 360-degree experience. You're talking about an experience where you can almost feel like you're standing right next to a Mahendra Singh Dhoni, first of its kind in terms of how you can choose the different cameras and experience the world of cricket a bit more. It's almost as if you're standing right next to him, almost instructing what he can do. I mean, we've seen that in the virtual world, but just it feels so real. I think two things that really click for JioCinema. One is the editorial side of things, which is very, very important. And second, obviously, is the experience of being there and actually witnessing the whole event.
Thank you so much for your valuable time.